Hello, in this tutorial we're going to be talking about correction tools. I am using Photoshop CS6. You may be using an older uh, model such as CS5, but they're all about the same. On your tools panel you'll see the Band-Aid, okay, and this is the spot healing brush tool. So there's four tools we're going to be talking about: the spot healing brush tool, the healing brush tool, the patch tool, and the clone stamp tool, which is in another menu. Below these three that we're going to be talking about is the content aware move tool and the red eye tool. These two you don't use very often, but you may use them sometime down the road. So the four we're going to talk about mainly are the four I mentioned earlier, but in this menu are these three: the spot healing brush tool, the healing brush tool, and the patch tool. First one we're going to start with is the spot healing brush tool. All the correction tools that we're going to be talking about are to fix either facial blemishes or different blemishes in the background, maybe on clothing or other portraits. Basically to fix any blemishes in a picture. Okay, we have this old lady picture here, as you can see. She has a lot of wrinkles. She's fairly old, and she just has a lot of facial blemishes with the wrinkles, and that's why we're going to use this picture. The spot healing brush tool, the cool thing about that is that it automatically selects pixels as you are correcting it. So you don't have to hold, if you hold Alt and this crosshairs come up, these are your pixel selection tool, which is combined into the correction tools, the spot healing brush and the healing brush. On the spot healing brush, you do not have to select your pixels that you're going to be copying. So that's the good part. It will automatically select pixels around your circle. So if I just click and drag, it's going to automatically select pixels closely related. Now with the spot healing brush tool or the healing brush tool, the best thing to do is click and do very short spots. You don't want to do this and do a really long spot because it's not going to do near as good a job. Okay, so what you want to do, it's going to create like a fuzzy look to it. So you don't want to do that. What you do want to do is just click maybe multiple times, or you can click and drag very short areas. Okay, but the bad thing about healing brush, both the healing brush and the spot healing brush, is they do kind of make a fuzzy look because they're just basically merging multiple pixels together. Okay, that's kind of what it does. That's kind of how it works. Okay, so you don't want to use it a lot, especially on this face, because you're going to have kind of a facial blur right here. Okay, kind of where I used it already. But that's kind of the spot healing brush. It's just kind of great for fixing small blemishes. You can use it to fix blemishes in clothing, or let's say she had a piece of dirt here. You just kind of touch it up. Maybe you want to get rid of some of these, fuzz out some of these lines in her clothing, or maybe you want to just get rid of maybe her necklace. Okay, so you can use this, get rid of her necklace. And that's pretty easy. You just kind of click and drag over and you, with the spot healing brush tool, because it automatically does samples, you're gonna have a funny look sometimes. Like up here, I used it up here before the tutorial started, and it kind of made it like a funny deal here because if you do too much, it looks funny because it automatically selects the pixels. So that is the spot healing brush tool. The next one we're going to use is the healing brush tool. Healing brush tool and the spot healing brush tool are very closely related, but with the healing brush tool you get to select the pixels. It does not automatically select. So what we're going to do is hold Alt and zoom in here on her eye. We're going to select, hold Alt again, and until you get the crosshairs, and then find the pixels that you want to select and copy and click. Now the thing about the spot healing or the healing brush tool is you do not want to select close to an object that you do not want. So if let's say I select here and I come down here and drag over, it's going to copy my eye. Okay, so I can go ahead, form her eye right here. Okay, as you can see, now she has another eye right here, and you don't really want to do that unless you really want like a four-eyed lady or something. I mean, I can put another eye right here if I really want to. Okay, and basically what I'm doing is copying the pixels from here where I selected with my crosshairs, and I'm copying them over to wherever I put. So I don't want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and go back on my history panel. Okay, and what I'm going to do is go down here, hold Alt, and select the pixels down here because this is already corrected. There's not too many wrinkles down here, And then what I want to do is get rid of these wrinkles right here. So the healing brush tool is easier to use for you to select it, and then you don't get all this extra fuzziness up here, the blur and stuff as much. But you have to be careful about where you select. Don't just select already corrected areas or areas that look good already. So if you hold Alt, you can select wherever you want. Okay, and I would recommend you changing your pixel selection every once in a while. As soon as you move to a different shade of color, or maybe a shade of dark, like light or dark, because over here you don't want to select these pixels and do over here, else you're going to get that light color. Okay, so you don't want to do that because then it looks funny. So you do want to select a lot. You want to reselect your pixel um, sample quite a few times whenever you move shades. So if you move from over here to here, you want to reselect your pixel selection. So that's the healing brush tool. But next one we're going to talk about, we're going to switch images here to this little lamp by the beach. And we're going to talk about the patch tool and the clone stamp tool. So the patch tool and the clone stamp tool are better for getting rid of large objects that you don't want in your picture. So I don't really like this lamp in my beach picture. Okay, just pretend I shot this picture while I was at my beach house. I don't want this lamp in the picture, I just want the picture of the ocean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to my Band-Aid tool, or my Band-Aid picture over here, select the patch tool. Now the patch tool, like I said, is used to get rid of larger objects, but I would not recommend getting rid of this entire lamp at one time. Or you could try it, so let's go ahead and try it. What you want to do is click and drag, click the patch tool and drag around the object. Now you have to watch, and that's going to select it with a mark. It's going to have a marquee around it. So, but then you have up here your options for the patch tool. You have the source, the destination, or if you want it transparent. So right now we have it on source. Now we're going to click and drag. Okay. See, if I do a bit too big of a deal, it's not going to have enough picture to replace it. So that's the only bad thing I see about that, and that's the deal. If you don't have a really good uh, graphics processor as well, you're going to always have this little problem here, this progress problem, because your graphics takes a lot to update. And that's why I also don't recommend doing large patches. So what I'm going to do is go back on my history panel and delete those. Okay? So that now I've started over the new image. I'm going to go back to the patch tool. Okay? But this time I'm just going to do small objects. So I'm going to go ahead and drag around this. Okay, it doesn't really matter. It's going to create this marquee. I still have it on source. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag over. I'm going to kind of match up my waves, as you can see. I'm going to try to get my waves to kind of match up so it doesn't look really dumb when I zoom out. Okay, and then if I do Control D or Command D if you're on a Mac, okay, you can see a result. And it looks really good. I think it looks pretty good for being patched up. So we're going to continue doing this a couple times. Okay, we're just going to continue patching up patches, but you want to just match your waves, kinda. You don't want your waves to look stupid. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And as you can see, it kind of leaves a blur right here, so you might have to do it multiple times. And when you're on source, you have to select your source first. If you're on destination, you select what you want to copy and then move it, and then you can move it multiple times. But with source, you have to select your first. You have to select the object that you want to erase. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, that selected that. Now I'm going to do destination. I'm going to see, the bad thing with destination is if you have waves like this and you want to match it up, you can't really do this a lot because maybe your wave's not really right, or like I don't want to put it right here because that would look kind of dumb. And then you're going to have the same thing, Control D to deselect. You're going to have the same thing over and over again, and it'll look kind of dumb. So I'm going to go back on my patch tool, okay, and delete that. Okay, now I got this back. Now I'm going to redo this, but see, I'm on destination again. You got to make sure that your stuff is set the way you want it. So I'm just going to press Control Z to undo. press my source option up here. I'm going to drag it over here again. Okay, kind of match up my waves a little bit. Don't want it to do a lot, you know. Want it to kind of look good. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to continue doing these patches. Like I said, I don't recommend doing too large of ones, but you can do however large you want. And it doesn't really matter the shape or anything, because, I mean, it's all going to be patched up. Like I said, graphics processor, if it's slow, it's going to do that a lot. Control D to deselect it. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to draw this again. And sooner or later, the whole goal of this is to be able to say that I don't have a lamp where the lamp once stood. So that's the whole purpose. So wherever there's a fuzziness, like right here there's a blur, so you want to kind of get rid of that as much as you can. So you may have to do this multiple times, and the bigger your selection is, the harder it's going to be. Okay, Control D to deselect. See, right here we're getting kind of a deal where we made too big of a selection. So don't make that mistake and make too big of a selection. You just want to make small selections. So we're about got this thing done, but we're going to finish this up here. I want to go over here maybe, get that last one, and then we're going to have this little blob right here where it didn't really get it. Oh, I forgot this piece down here. So we're going to go ahead and select this whole thing. Okay, right there looks kind of good. That doesn't match. I'm going to go up there. Okay, so that looks fairly good. You can mess around with a little more. It's just kind of all on preference, how you care if it looks. Okay, right there, you can tell there's maybe a shadow, but nobody's going to really know that lamp once stood there if we do that. Okay. You just got to watch with this background. It's kind of a little more difficult because all the color changes from white to blue to light blue to dark blue. So you got to be careful with that. But that is how you run the patch tool. Next thing we're going to use is the clone stamp tool. And in order to do that, we're going to clone a piece of the picture. So we're going to get rid of these little dark blue sections. And the clone stamp tool is right under this stamp looking object here, and that will be your clone stamp tool. There's also the pattern stamp tool, but you'll hardly ever use that tool. So we're going to talk about the clone stamp tool. The clone stamp tool is very much like the healing brush tool and the spot healing brush tool. Okay, so you hold Alt, select your clone, what you want to clone, and after you select it, then you can make it bigger, but it's going to clone the area in which you select it. So I'm going to just add more waves here, and now I have that part that was blue gone. And you can select, maybe I want this piece up here, so I don't have, and you can click and drag. Okay, so you can click and drag it like the healing brush tool. Okay, now that dark spot's gone. So I mean, it's really helpful in a lot of instances. Let's say you have a background with trees and there's a house in the background that you don't like the house. You just clone the trees and your house is gone. So it's really simple. You can just kind of drag around wherever you want to clone. And right now we just got rid of all those dark areas. Let's see here. I have a couple more back here that I did not make, but we'll put this in here anyway. We'll just clone these things up. So right now we just cloned. Okay, so now we see that there's a little problem back here where we cloned. I got the wrong line in here, and you can tell that I cloned it. So what I'm going to do is go over here, select this, and now it's gone. So this is really helpful tool. I love the clone stamp tool because it has so many uses. Correction tools are very useful, and I hope you'll continue with our tutorials on the next ones with fills and other objects for fills and erasers. Okay? Thank you for watching.